What's good, YouTube? It's your boy, Bluebird Sports TV, back at y'all with another one. So, a mutual opponent, two-time welterweight world champion, superstar boxer, who is retired now, future, in my opinion, first ballot Hall of Famer, in Showtime Shawn Porter, who is retired at 31 wins, 4 losses, 1 draw, 17 wins by way of knockout, 5'6", with a 68-inch armies. With that said, Shawn Porter, he weighed in on some of the legends in retired, iconic, Hall of Fame, legendary superstar boxers in Roy Jones Jr. and James Lights Out Toney, saying that the highly anticipated, massive, undisputed mega showdown between undefeated, newly crowned 3-belt unified welterweight world champion superstar boxer, who is widely considered by many to be top 2 best pound-for-pound fighters in the world, and Errol the True Spence Jr., who is 28 wins, no loss, and no draw. Errol Spence is 32 years of age, 5'9.5" with a 72-inch armies, right? So Shawn Porter, he faced Errol Spence, and Errol Spence, an undefeated 3-division world champion, former junior welterweight undisputed world champion, currently the reigning WBO welterweight world champion, who is widely considered by many to be the #1 best pound-for-pound fighter in the world, in Terence Crawford, who's 38 wins, no loss, no draw, 29 big wins by way of knockout, 34 years of age, 5'8" with a 74-inch arm reach. He just happens to be Shawn Porter's last opponent, okay? They fought November 20th of 2021, and Terence Crawford got a 10th round stoppage victory. He dropped Shawn Porter twice in the 10th round. Shawn Porter's father, trainer, manager Kenny Porter saw enough, waved the white towel, and that was all she wrote. So with that said, Shawn Porter, he was dropped in the 10th round by Errol Spence in their fight, and then I thought Errol Spence clearly won the 11th and the 12th round to separate a very close fight. Terence Crawford, he dropped Shawn Porter twice in the 10th round, and Kenny Porter, like I said, waved it off. He saw enough. So with that said, right, now we have a situation where James Toney, Roy Jones, they said that the fight ain't gonna go past 6 rounds. Well, Shawn Porter has been in there with both Errol Spence and Terence Crawford, obviously. Terence Crawford on the cards at one point in time going into the 10th round. His corner and people was telling Terence Crawford he was down on the cards. It was a very close fight. Going into the 10th round of Errol Spence and Shawn Porter, many people had it a draw at that point in time. So it was a very close fight that he was in with both guys, right? He was in a very close fight with Terence Crawford. He was in a very close fight with Errol Spence, right? And so with that said, Shawn Porter, he completely disagrees with Roy Jones and James Toney that the fight is going to end in 6 rounds or less, right? James Toney, he said that Errol Spence would be lucky if he gets to the 6th round. Terence and Roy Jones said that he agrees with James Toney because he don't know if the car wreck that Errol Spence suffered 12 days after unifying the belts against Shawn Porter in September 2019, and October 10th, he suffered a horrific car accident, and which saw him out the ring, right? And so with that said, you know, Roy Jones is saying the car wreck may still have a lingering effect. Now, that was 3 years ago. Obviously, Errol Spence has had 2 fights. He faced 2-time welterweight world champion Puerto Rican superstar boxer Danny Swift Garcia. Then he fought against, most recently, April 16th in a unification bout with former WBA welterweight world champion Cuban star boxer Yordenis Ugas, in which he dominated Ugas, got a 10th round stoppage, breaking his ribs, his nose, and his orbital bone. So he dominated that fight, right? And so with that said, you know, Shawn Porter, he's been in the ring with Yordenis Ugas. So Errol Spence has had 2 fights already since suffering a car accident, okay? He's 2 fights removed and 3 years removed from that, and Roy Jones is saying he don't know if there's still gonna be lingering effects, okay, on Errol Spence, right, going into the Terence Crawford fight. And if he is lingering effects, then he can see him getting stopped by Terence Crawford, right? So with that said, I don't see it. You understand? I think that, you know, Errol Spence has gotten better since the car accident, right? He's more committed, more focused, and more locked in. So nonetheless, Shawn Porter, he disagrees, right? He says that both guys have the power to end it before or by the 6th round for sure, but he don't see it, right? So Shawn Porter, he's obviously been in there with both guys, right? And he's been in there with your Dana Sugas. And Shawn Porter, he stated that Errol Spence hits harder than Terence Crawford, but Terence Crawford delivers his punches different. It's the delivery of Terence Crawford that makes it, makes Terence Crawford so special, right? So, he's saying that he feels like, that Errol Spence has one-punch knockout power more so than Terence Crawford's accumulation, right? But Terence Crawford is more versatile in how he delivers it. So he said that he's more elusive, and he has a lot of tricks up his sleeve, right? But he says that he completely disagrees that the fight is going to end by 6th round. He actually thinks it's going to go to a decision, and he says, but obviously both guys have what it takes to obviously end it by the 6th round, but he thinks it's going to go to a decision, right? And initially, Shawn Porter, he stated that he thought Terence Crawford was going to win. Then Shawn Porter, he got on the kick where he was like, I'm not going to pick an opponent. I'm not going to pick a winner. I'm just going to say that, I want to see a great fight. May the best man win. So that's where Shawn Porter started to go with this. He's like, I just want to see the best man win. I'm not going to pick a winner, nor am I going to pick a loser. I just want to see the best man win. Well, now Shawn Porter has since changed his tune. He disagrees with Roy Jones and Antonio Tarver that Errol Spence is not versatile. Errol Spence don't have tools in the toolbox. He's one-dimensional. Shawn Porter disagrees with that. He's been in the ring, so who better qualified to speak on it, right? And so with that said, Shawn Porter also, he stated that, now he's given the edge slightly to Terence Crawford, right? He's slightly given the edge to Terence Crawford, and he stated that, he can see Terence Crawford, making adjustments and outboxing Errol Spence down the stretch, right? Which is, like I said, this is a 50-50 fight. In order for this fight to be considered the biggest fight in the sport of boxing, it has to be a 50-50 fight, right? The legends like Roy Jones, James Toney, Tarver, Paulie Malignaggi, they like, listen, this is the biggest fight in boxing since 1981 when we had Sugar Ray Leonard take on Tommy Hearns in a unification bout. Now, there was only 2 belts on the line at that time, the WBA and the WBC, but it's the biggest fight in boxing since that, right? And that, and so with that said, they're saying, listen, that was September 16th of 1981. This is the biggest fight in the sport of boxing. Well, if Errol Spence doesn't even stand a chance to get to the 6th round, then how could it be the biggest fight in boxing? It just simply couldn't be. That's not possible, right? It's just not possible to be the biggest fight in the sport of boxing if Errol Spence don't even stand a chance to get to the 6th round, or if he still has massive lingering effects from suffering that horrific car accident, right? It just wouldn't be. It's just not possible, right? So with that said, I believe that, it is a 50-50 fight. And Shawn Porter, he said it's not 50-50. He said it's 49.3 to 49.2 to 49.8 that, Terence Crawford is going to be the victor, right? So he gives Terence Crawford 0.8% chance to beat Errol Spence, right? So he said it's 49.2 for Errol Spence and 49.8 in favor of Terence Crawford, right? So he's giving Terence Crawford a slight edge to be the victor. So that is a much different perspective from a guy who's shared the ring with Errol Spence and shared the ring with Terence Crawford, compared to with Roy Jones and James Toney and Antonio Tarver, and how they see the fight just being a dominating performance on the part of Terence Crawford. So they see a completely different fight from that. And I agree, right? I do think that it's going to be a very close fight. I can see it going both ways. I can see, Errol Spence physicality, right? He's a natural southpaw. He eliminates the southpaw advantage that Terence Crawford has. So what happens is Terence Crawford, when he faced Shawn Porter, when he faced Igor Kavalauskas and Amir Khan, he switches to southpaw, and now he has that southpaw advantage with extremely long arms and power in both right and left hand, right? So with that said, here's a situation where Errol Spence is a natural big welterweight and a southpaw, right? So he eliminates Terence Crawford having a southpaw advantage, right? And so with that said, it makes it that much more intriguing because we got to see how the adjustments are made. So when people say that Errol Spence is one-dimensional, that's completely absurd, because we see that Errol Spence, he beat Mikey Garcia, like Shawn Porter said. Errol Spence likes to beat you at your game. Terence Crawford likes to beat you at his game, right? So Errol Spence, he likes to play your game. He wants to beat you at your game. Terence Crawford wants to beat you at his game, right? He wants to bring you into his wheelhouse and beat you in his wheelhouse. Errol Spence wants to come into your house and beat you at your game, right? And we saw the versatility. He fought Mikey Garcia fight and beat Mikey Garcia at Mikey Garcia's game. He fought Shawn Porter and beat Shawn Porter at Shawn Porter's game. Then he showed versatility and mixing it up against Kell Brook and Yordenis Ugas, and breaking Kell Brook's orbital bone, being very aggressive, breaking Yordenis Ugas' orbital bone, being very aggressive, right? So we seen versatility. We seen different ways that he could get it done. You understand? So it's going to be very intriguing as to what chess move Errol Spence make compared to the chess move of Terence Crawford, and what adjustment either guy makes, period. So let's see how this unfolds and plays out. But that's all I got for y'all. Make sure you hit the like button, drop a comment in the comment section, let me know what y'all think. Y'all already know what it is. It's your boy Blue Blood Sports TV. Hate, like, comment, and subscribe. You haven't subscribed, hit the subscribe button, hit the like button, hit the bell icon to get all the new notification. Follow me on Instagram at Blue Blood Sports TV, all one word. Y'all already know what it is. Shout out to the entire LDBC. Shout out to New Media. Shout out to Black Media Row. Make sure you like and share these videos. That's all I got for y'all. Peace.